YouTube, what is up everybody? Today is a special day. For those of you who may not know, there has been a hint that there is a ban list today, and I can confirm it is real. I've been refreshing the page for the last 10 minutes or so. I just refreshed it. I saw that it updated, but I haven't quite looked at it yet. To give you a little bit of context, there is a link that they typically use for the ban list, and if you input a different date in that link, it brings you to a page that says you are not authorized to view this. So typically this will be what I just put in a random date here, October 20th. This page will come up, it'll say no result found, but if you put the actual date, then if they have like a potential ban list that is set to come out, it'll say you are not authorized to view this page. So typically what people do is they just kind of, maybe weekly or monthly refresh that, change the date, and then once that page comes to the date, it says, you're not authorized to view this page. That's how we know a ban list is coming, because they don't ever announce it. But it's here. We have a ban list, and we are going. This is my live reaction. I have not seen it yet. Like I said, I refreshed the page. I saw that it came up. I wanted to give you guys my live reaction without, this is live. So, 3, 2, 1, let's take a look. Announcement date, October 10th, 2022. Standard. I don't play a lot of Standard, so I don't really know about this. The Meat Hook Massacre is banned. You guys can let me know in the comment section below. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I don't play a lot of Standard. But they have finally done it! Yorion the Sky Nomad is banned in Modern. This is an excellent start. Thank you so much, Wizards of the Coast. We'll take a look at we'll look at their reasoning behind the bans and all that stuff. But this is an absolute thumbs up. Yorion and companions in a general sense have just kind of been just a disaster in terms of design, and I think they realized that they kind of screwed it up with companions. They tried to nerf it by making you pay 3 additional mana. Still didn't work out in the case of Lurrus and some other ones in Legacy, and Yorion has been kind of a giant fixture of the Modern format. So, I play a lot of Yorion Rhinos in Modern. Not shedding a tear. I am very happy to see Yorion go, and I am very, very pleased that we no longer have to play with 80 cards. Because that's 80 cards is a lot of shuffling, too. So, let's take a look at their reasoning. So, again, I'm not going to go over Standard really at all, because I have not played a single game of Standard in about 3 years. So, you guys can, again, let me know in the comments if the Standard ban is good. I don't know anything about Standard, so we're going to skip that. This is the meat and potato, and then, obviously, the Pioneer, no announcement. We'll talk about that, but let's get into Modern first. Modern has been in a healthy place since the last banned and restricted update, with good diversity among archetypes, and even if the most popular competitive decks occupying a relatively small slice of the metagame, about 5 to 6% each. However, as tabletop Modern play continues to rebound since the height of the pandemic, we've decided to enact a change that we've been considering for some time by banning Yorion. So this is tabletop focused, which does make a lot of sense as they, transition back into more tabletop play. The other thing about Yorion, the decks that Yorion goes into incentivize a lot of fetch lands and a lot of tutoring and a lot of searching, and you can imagine searching and shuffling an 80-card deck on average 7 to 10 times per game. This is what causes a lot of games to go to time, so that's a very good change. Most commonly appears as a companion of 4-color Omnath, which slows a strong win rate, according to matchup data, which I don't know if they've released any of it, but they don't have matchup data here, are likely to continue to rise in popularity. In addition to game balance concerns with the deck, we've also factoring in the physical dexterity requirements. Yep, playing a large deck for tabletop, and shuffling and searching, or wary of the metagame reaching a point where players are playing the deck because of its perceived strength, and win rate despite not enjoying how cumbersome it can be to operate. Physical dexterity issues exist to a lesser degree in other formats like Pioneer. Modern specifically entails more shuffling because of fetch lands, as we talked about. Battle of Wits, yada yada, don't really care about that. Finally, we've also heard from many players that repeated triggers caused by Yorion and many of the cards surrounding it can lead to repetitive gameplay patterns. Yeah, makes sense. A lot of the games with Yorion just kind of, you're playing this one-for-one game, trying to trade resource, trade resource, trade resource, and every single game they always have access to, essentially a 5-mana 4/5 that draws 4 or 5 cards, maybe Blinks of Solitude, maybe Blinks of Fury, all that kind of stuff. So, yes, I 100% agree with the repetitive gameplay aspect. Let's see. Long games, lots of downtime between the other players' actions. It's important that the net player experience playing with the top decks is a fun one, and while we're okay with such decks existing, it can make the format less enjoyable when these patterns are associated with one of the strongest decks over a long period of time. To make Modern as fun and accessible as it can be for all types of players, Yorion the Sky Nomad is banned in Modern. Excellent start. Now, again, you guys have, if you've been watching my YouTube channel and watching the content on Twitch over the past, essentially 3, 4, or 5 months at this point, I've been pretty vocal about my distaste for the modern format. This is a good start. I'm gonna play a little bit more modern with this ban. I'm gonna try some Rhinos decks. Maybe I'll dabble into a little bit more modern. I still kind of, overall, in my opinion, I still think that Modern Horizons has overall, I don't know, it's tough to say, because yes, it really revitalized the format, but at what cost? There's a lot of free spells. I think I did some notes the other day, or not the other day, but one of the recent NRG events, I was looking through the top 32 decks, and after adding it up and taking the average number of Modern Horizons cards in a single deck in the top 32 was about 20. And that's kind of crazy. So it definitely has impacted the format again. Yet it's hard to say whether it's for the better or the worse, but Yorion is definitely a good start. So thankfully, we do not have to deal with playing 80 cards anymore, shuffling and searching and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good change. Now, Pioneer is the other place. A lot of people were discussing, I've heard a lot about on Twitter, because Pioneer is the format that I've been playing the most over the past couple of months. And I kind of understand the sentiment to want to ban a card from Mono Green, maybe Nykthos, maybe Karn. Potentially, I've heard people talk about banning Fable of the Mirror Breaker or Thoughtseize from Rakdos, maybe something from Greasefang. Overall, I actually think Pioneer is not in a bad spot. I think the Mono Green deck is kind of keeping the decks that would normally be good against Rakdos in check. So it's kind of tough, because maybe from that argument you could say, well, if you ban a card from Mono Green, then Rakdos gets taken down a peg because Lotus Field comes back. So it's tough to balance, but I think overall I really enjoy playing the Pioneer format, And would I be sad to see a Nykthos or a Karn go? More so, I would be sad to see Nykthos go, because I think Nykthos is cool in some of the other devotion-based strategies. Karn, on the other hand, especially with the Brothers War coming out, I wouldn't have shed a tear for Karn. And then as far as something from Rakdos is concerned, I really, really don't think that anything from Rakdos needs to get banned. I just think that the gameplay with Rakdos is overall pretty good, and I don't really know why we would want to ban a card from Rakdos. But let's see what they say about Pioneer. Overall, Pioneer looks to be in a good place as we head into the Regional Championship qualifier season throughout November and December. We're seeing a wide variety of strategies employed by the most popular decks. The most played deck on Magic Online is Rakdos Midrange, which is about 13% of the metagame share. None of the top 20 most played decks have a non-mirror match win rate of more than about 53%, which is pretty good. Even though Mono Green and Rakdos are the two best decks, but as long as their win rate is not getting, well above 50%, then what that means is that there's definitely a lot of strategies and cards that you can play to make your matchup good against Mono Green and Rakdos. And I do agree that that is the case. In general, we've heard a lot of positivity from players about the state of the format. We'll continue to keep an eye on the health of the format, especially as it undergoes more competitive pressure within regional championship qualifiers as things currently stand. We don't anticipate any changes before or during that season. I like that note there. That basically they're giving us some kind of clarification and some certainty that, even though they're not banning anything now, well, what about maybe right after? Because it's weird with the timing with the regional championship, and then it's halfway through RCQ Season 2, so it's well, if Mono Green dominates regional championship, and then they're well, now we have to emergency ban a card from Mono Green, which screws up the rest of the half of the Season 2. I like that they're just going to kind of let it play out until the end of Season 2 and see where that goes. But again, I personally think that Pioneer is in a fine spot. Again, I wouldn't shed a tear to see Karn go. I think that, especially with the Brothers War coming out, depending on what artifacts they print, Karn is one of those cards that restricts design space, overall, especially long-term, where if you just keep printing more and more really good artifacts, you're just giving this Mono Green deck more tools. So, I wouldn't be upset to see Karn go, but for now, I think it's fine. Again, we'll kind of let's see how it plays out. Especially, it's kind of awkward. People who are planning trips for Atlanta, banning a card before Atlanta would be really, really, would give people. I guess you still have a little bit of time, enough time to prepare, but still, it's before a large tournament like that, it's kind of tough to ban a card. So kind of understand that. And overall, I think Pioneer's in a fine spot. So I'm actually pretty happy to see no bans. And then Legacy and Vintage, I don't really play a ton of those formats, so we won't spend any time on that. But overall, what are we at for time here? Let me just take a look at how far into the video we are. We're about 9 minutes in. Okay. So overall, First and foremost, Yorion makes a lot of sense. You know, if you look at their, I'll put a link to this article in the description below. But if you take a look at their reasoning, you know, they don't think that the win rate is too high, but it's more so the repetitive gameplay, which I 100% agree with, and the dexterity in terms of shuffling as we transition back into paper play. So both of those reasons are, you know, absolutely 100% good reason to ban Yorion. My issue with this is, I think Spike brought up a good point about this one, you know, when he was talking about potential bans a little while ago, is what if you ban Yorion, doesn't it potentially just make the 4-color deck, you know, they don't have access to that, like, big end game play of Yorion, but they're going to draw Wrenn and 6 more often in their 60-card deck, and Wrenn and 6 is, in my eyes, the best card in the 4-color deck. So I was kind of more on the camp of banning Wrenn and 6 more so than Yorion. I think both of them probably eventually need to go. But with them reprinting Wrenn and 6 in a recent set and the price of that card, you know, it's really tough to say whether or not they want to take the plunge and ban a card like that. But we'll have to see how it plays out. You know, I think a lot of people are still going to play 4-color. You still have Omnath, you still have Wrenn and 6, you still have Elementals. There's still a very powerful core there. Even though you don't have access to the ultimate endgame in Yorion, you still have a lot of those good main deck cards. And again, you're drawing Wrenn and 6 more often in 60 cards than 80 cards. So you have to keep that in mind. So I don't know if this is actually going to really do anything in terms of shifting the metagame. I think that you could even argue that maybe more people will play 4-color because of this, so it's kind of weird to see that. But, you know, like I said, we'll have to see how it plays out. I'm not unhappy about never having to play against Yorion again. I think that card is obviously a design mistake. But overall, we'll have to see how it plays out. And again, Pioneer, I think it's a thumbs up. I think the format's kind of fine. You could argue maybe Mono Green is a little bit too good, but I want to see how it plays out, especially with that large regional championship coming up. I think you're going to see a lot more innovation for that tournament. You're going to see more decks that post a good Mono Green matchup, and I want to see how that plays out before we get, you know, really determined on Pioneer. So that's it for today. A pretty big announcement. Please be sure to let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Did you like the bans? Do you want to see something else banned? Talk to me about the other formats that I may not be as well versed in. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.